Welcome to another episode of Grammar is Power. In this video, we'll walk through the answers to the identifying and punctuating adverb clause exercise. But first, a quick review. If you haven't yet moved the definitions of adverb clauses into your long-term memory, you'll want to get on top of that soon. Adverb clauses are subject-verb combinations that cannot stand alone as sentences, and that functions as adverbs modifying the verb in the independent clause. They begin with subordinating conjunctions. Use commas to separate adverb clauses that come before or inside, but not after, the independent clause they modify. You may want to make brief notes on your handout to help you explain why you missed something. This metacognitive practice will help you learn more quickly than simply writing down the correct answers. Number 1. The core elements of the two clauses are pirates returned pieces, a direct object, paid debt, another direct object. The two verbs share one subject, pirates, so there is one clause here with a compound verb. The other clause's core elements are they would be free. Free is the predicate adjective. The adverb clause comes before the independent clause, so you need a comma here. Number 2. We have three clauses. An adverbial clause that tells when he was wearing. It's before the independent clause, so we need a comma. A clause that tells why he was wearing and comes after, so no comma. And then the independent clause. Don't forget to identify auxiliaries and modal auxiliaries as part of verb phrases. Number 3. Break it down into subject-verb combinations. Elizabeth stole and hid, a compound verb with one subject. She wanted, she saw, and pirates attacked. The first adverbial clause interrupts the independent clause, so we need a comma on both sides. As soon as she saw it tells when she stole it, so as it follows the independent clause, no comma. If you thought that as soon as she saw it was interrupting the independent clause as well, you should have left the comma after necklace and put one after it to be consistent in your thinking. However, the adverbial clause actually comes after the subject and verb it modifies, so no commas. Finally, the sentence ends with another adverbial clause that tells when she hid. No commas because it comes after the subject-verb combination in the independent clause it modifies. Number 4. Here's another independent clause interrupted by the adverbial clause. So once again, commas on both sides. The comma fairy apparently dropped a stray comma after made. It does not belong here. Number 5. The sentence opens with an adverbial clause that tells under what condition they were. It's not a precise answer, but the clause clearly begins with a subordinating conjunction. With be and linking verbs, you often need to include the complete predicate to make sense of the adverb question, or in other words, what is it modifying? Under what condition, in this case the negative of it, they were able to break the curse. Opening adverbial clauses require commas at the end of them. Similarly, the second adverbial clause tells when they were able to break the curse. It follows the independent clause, so no comma. And the final one tells why they were able to break the curse. It also follows the independent clause, so again, no comma. Number 6. The adverb clause tells when he dropped and comes before the independent clause. The sentence ends with an adverbial clause that also tells when he dropped. No comma. In sentence 7, the adverb clause tells under what condition he was returned and interrupts the independent clause. Therefore, we need commas on both sides. The second independent clause includes the word until. In sentence 3, until begins a group of words that has a subject-verb combination, so until is a subordinate conjunction in that sentence. However, in this sentence, there is no subject-verb combination following the until, so there can't be a clause of any kind. In this instance, until functions as a preposition. It has compound objects, death and mission. The prepositional phrase does tell when no one knew, so it's adverbial, but it's an adverbial prepositional phrase. Without the subject-verb combination, it can't be an adverbial clause. Number 8. Similar to the until in number 7, because of is a preposition with guilt as its object. Because, without the of, is a subordinating conjunction. You can tell the difference because if we take out the because, the rest of the clause wouldn't be independent. We'd be left with, of her guilt, Elizabeth, and that just doesn't make sense. The adverb clause follows the independent clause, so no comma. So that is the subordinating conjunction that begins an adverb clause with a compound verb. There is only one subject, the crew. In number 9, the adverb clause begins with even though and interrupts the independent clause. She felt responsible for locking Jack to the mast. Therefore, the adverb clause requires commas on both sides. The second subordinated conjunction follows the independent clause, so we did not use a comma. Because the Kraken both attacked and swallowed, this clause has a compound verb. There are not two separate clauses in this section of the sentence because they're sharing the same subject. Number 10 has two independent clauses, each followed by an adverb clause. The only comma the sentence needs comes before the coordinating conjunction so that joins the two independent clauses. Without the comma, we would have a run-on. If you stay focused on the following process steps, you can tackle sentences with unusual structure. Focus on the subject-verb combinations. Who or what could stab? He. Who or what become? He. The same one as for could stab. Who or what had hidden? Another he. Who or what lost? Jack. Who or what left? A third he. With these combinations identified, you can identify the different clauses. The opening adverb clause has a compound verb, could stab and become. The clause tells when Jack lost it. You need a comma. The second adverb clause interrupts the independent clause, so we need commas on both sides. It tells under what condition he lost it. The third follows the independent clause and tells when he lost it. No comma. This sentence isn't a shining example of stylistically strong writing. It's over-subordinated and awkward, but it isn't grammatically incorrect. Number 12. Here's another sentence with 3 adverb clauses, but it's less awkward than number 11 because the first adverb clause interrupts early in the sentence. It requires commas on both sides. Then there are 2 adverb clauses in a row. The first tells why he took it. The second tells in what manner he could trade it. As they both follow the clauses whose verbs they modify, there are no commas. Ever is an adverb of time, coming between the auxiliary and the main verb. It isn't part of the verb phrase. If you still have questions about an answer or concept from this exercise, be sure to meet with your teacher as soon as possible to discuss it before the class moves on to the next topic. And that concludes this episode of Grammar is Power.